The credibility of the registry, that is, of course, the National Registry. Well, Nigeria's highest economic advisory body has expressed concerns over the National Social Register. The National Economic Council, during a meeting, discussed measures to reduce the effects of the scrapping of petrol subsidies and the exchange rate unification policy. The council recommended that states should be allowed to implement a cash transfer program based on their own social registers. Now, the governor of Anambra State, Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo, had made that point during the meeting, and he said it lacked credibility. And there's an article, of course, that was written in ThisDay on the ThisDay website, ThisDay news website, by, of course, none other than Waziri Adio, who is a contributing editor, analyst of the Rise Media Group. He said, as the way the Governor Soludo framed the social register is not only incorrect, but gravely unfair to the process and the stakeholders that put it together. He joins us now from our Abuja studios. Good morning to you, Waziri. Thank you so much for joining us. So that's your quotes that we have up on the screen. Can you expand further on that quotes?
Okay, thank you, Zorotos. Good morning, everyone. At the risk of taking up issues with Professor Soludo, someone I have enormous respect for, I have to say that his statement doesn't do justice to the register. Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly, yes. Did you want to continue?
Okay. So, I don't want to appear as if I'm taking up issues with Professor Soludo, someone I have enormous respect for. But I don't think his statement does justice, to the reality of the register. If you listen to him, the impression you are going to get is that the register doesn't have credibility, is shabby, and, is a sham. That is far from the truth. If you look at the process of putting the register together, if you look at the structure for gathering information in the register, if you look at the methodology used for the register, you find out that this is a register, that is actually comprehensive, is robust, and the process is participatory and decentralized. So let's start with the structure, for example. The first thing I need to say is that the register is actually an agglomeration of different registers compiled at the state level. So each state already has its own social register, right? And you put all of that together into the national register. So this is the process. It started with the federal government having MOUs with all the states. All the states of the federation signed an MOU with the federal government to say they are going to compile register in their own states. And not just that, they set up what they call the State Operations and Coordinating Unit, embedded in their own ministries of planning or their planning commission in the states. And this, SOCU, as they call them, further set up, the community tracing, tracking teams in the local governments. So that's in terms of the structure. In terms of the process that was employed, it's a series of process, but also implemented at the state level by state officials and local government officials, right? So it started with something that you call like a pre-sensitization meeting. That's the first step. Then you have a sensitization and mobilization meeting. That's the second step. And the third step is what you call community engagement, where they engage the communities, and I'll talk more about that shortly. And the last one is actually the capture of the data. So, but when you look at the methodology, it started with doing a map of incidence of poverty in the various states. And that leaned heavily on the Nigeria Living Standard Survey conducted by the National Bureau of Statistics. So this is not something that just came from the air. It was based on a survey by the NBS, and on the basis of that, they say, okay, let's look at state A. For example, let's look at Delta State, or let's look at Osun State, and say, where are the places in the state where you have the highest incidence of poverty in this state? And on the basis of that, you now say, okay, let's now go to the community level after identifying those places. So that's this geographical mapping of incidence of poverty in the states. The second step in the methodology is what they call the community-based tracking, right? So that's a place where they go to the communities and they ask the people in the communities to define what poverty means to them, what vulnerability means to them. Because what it means in community A might be different from community B, right? So, and they divide the members of the community into three. They have women groups, they have male group, they have youth group, and they have, focus group discussions, and they come to plenary where they define poverty, where they define vulnerability, where they now cascade it down to defining, identifying the households in their own context that they consider to be poor and vulnerable. So, after they've identified those households, then the enumerators will now go to those households and now capture the data and ask them questions across different indicators, right? It's when they've done that, that is the second step, which is the enumeration, all right? Then the last step is that the information that is gathered is also twinned with plausible means texting, right? So that on the basis of that, they can now grade these households in terms of deciles, to say, okay, this is the first decile, the second decile, the third decile, up to 10, in terms of ranking of poverty in the state, right? So you have a methodology that is participatory, that is robust, right? And to just dismiss it that way and say that it's a sham, it's full of ghost names and all of that. Another thing is that this register is actually one of the most comprehensive bases that you can find in this country. They collected data on poverty incidence from the households, in terms of more than 100 indicators, more than 100 data points, I think like 138 data points. And they also have geolocations. So when people come and say, oh, they don't know who these poor people are, what they need to do is to go to call their own people at the state level and say, to call their SOCU, to call whoever is in charge to say, bring me up to date on this register. And let's see how we can identify the people on this register. So I don't think what Professor Soludo and others have said is a fair reflection of what has happened. So I will stop here for now.
Waziri Adio, we've got breaking news that we've got to go to. Excellent breakdown. Thank you so much for joining us to lend credibility to these National Register. So I guess the answer is yes. The National Register is in fact credible. Waziri Adio is a Rise News analyst, also a columnist and contributor to ThisDay newspaper as well. All right, once more, our breaking news. The suspended governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, has told a federal court this morning that he is not guilty of the allegations leveled against him by the secret police, that's the Nigeria Secret Police, over the possession of a single-barrel shotgun without the appropriate license. He was granted bail in the sum of 20 million naira and one surety. Emefiele arrived, of course, at the court premises about 9:20 a.m. This morning, accompanied by arms-wielding hooded officers of the Department of State Security. Lawyer to him, Joseph Daudu, a senior advocate of Nigeria and former president of the Nigeria Bar Association, pleaded with the court to help stop the oppression of his client, who has been in detention for weeks. He added that he already filed an application for bail and served on the prosecution, but the DS has objected, claiming that it has not been served.